What is going on, everyone? Welcome into the Brant Partial Show. So let's talk running backs. And one running back I really love is Trey Benson from Florida State. Trey Benson, a physical, tough runner, former transfer from Oregon. Benson has done it did an excellent job in his first year at Florida State in 2022. You really saw his full talent on display. Over 900 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns, 990 rushing yards to be exact, just shy of 1,000. So, yeah, Benson, he's starting to get a lot more claim. He's starting to get a lot more hype and publicity now. A lot more people are jumping on the Trey Benson bandwagon. For the NFL draft consensus media, he's a lot lower than most, but he's moving up by a lot of analysts. Right now on the consensus board, he's only like 6 or 7, maybe. He might even be lower than that. But some of the top two, Travion Henderson and Raheem Sanders. Now, I like Raheem Sanders a lot. I think Travion Henderson is a guy that might slip. I feel like it's going to be hard for him to stay at that one spot just because, Travion Henderson is just, I think if you're talking about strictly all-around game, Travion Henderson has a really good skill set all around, but I don't think his high-end level traits are as good as Trey Benson or Braylon Allen, Braylon Allen and Trey Benson are my top 2 guys right now. I got Blake Corum, number 3. The number 4 guy, number 4 through 6 for me right now is kind of a toss-up because I really like Will Shipley. I also like I like Donovan Edwards too. I like Raheem Sanders. I like Travion Henderson. So to me right now, if I had to do a top 5, I would go Braylon Allen 1, Trey Benson 2. But Trey Benson might be my favorite to watch. I think just his running style, just the way he plays, I think would probably be my number 1 to watch. But as far as like overall skill set, Braylon Allen is just so talented. And this is a guy that, I came into Wisconsin, they thought he might not even play running back, which is to me is amazing. Because he was a linebacker. He played like linebacker / probably like strong safety hybrid in high school and running back. Came into Wisconsin, thought he might play defense, and then they play him at running back, and he has a monster 2021 season, then a monster year this year, 1,200 yards, then 1,400 yards. So Braylon Allen, tremendous story, and it's crazy. Wisconsin just always seems to find running backs. It is astounding to me, because I feel I like when Melvin Gordon. I keep thinking every year, I'm like, they can't find another really good running back, can they? And then they do. They find Jonathan Taylor, and then Jonathan Taylor leaves, and there's kind of a year where it's like 2020. It's like maybe is Wisconsin finally going to go without a top level college running back who will play well in the NFL? And then now we find Braylon Allen. So. Yeah, Braylon Allen to be Braylon Allen 1, Trey Benson 2, Blake Corum 3. Blake Corum, just his ability to Blake Corum just knows the running back position well. And what I mean by that, he just knows when to cut. He knows when to be patient. He knows how to set up blocks. He knows the strengths of his offensive line. He knows when the block's going to be, when the lane's going to open up. You can tell he's been coached up so well by Mike Hart, the running backs coach at Michigan. So Blake Corum, my number 3. I probably go Raheem Sanders 4. I love the way Raheem Sanders run. This guy, you get vibes of Marshawn Lynch, just a guy that just will use any tool in his arsenal to avoid being tackled, whether that's a stiff arm or moving laterally, fighting, moving the pile. He does anything he can to pick up extra yards. To me, that's what's fun and exciting to watch about a running back, a guy that just does everything to fight for extra yardage. Raheem Sanders, he does have ability to break longer runs. You do see the top end speed is pretty good overall. The burst acceleration is good, but he is not a acceleration, turn on the jets and break long runs. Not necessarily Raheem Sanders' game, but at the next level, he is a guy that's, he's gonna have 10 10, 12-yard carries where he just breaks multiple tackles, moves the pile, runs over a guy. That's going to be Raheem Sanders' game. And I think that's why a lot of people view him highly. He does have a little bit of that upside where he can break longer runs, but not as much. Braylon Allen, Trey Benson, those are guys where they got speed, where they can, especially Braylon Allen's got the speed to break the 70, 80-plus yard run. So that's why I love Braylon Allen. And, and Will Shipley, too. Will Shipley is kind of, I'm not saying he's the forgotten about guy, but I think he's going to be a guy that's ranked lower, but I think the NFL will still value him highly. I think that, there's guys in every draft where the public, or like the public experts, the non-NFL people that talk draft, kind of I guess kind of like myself, probably will view Will Shipley lower as far as running backs, but Will Shipley I think is a guy that in NFL is going to go fairly high, probably higher than most people think in the NFL draft. Maybe not first round, but I think he'll be a guy that goes early second round, and he just because Will Shipley just has a skill set that translates well to the NFL. And he's like TreVeyon Henderson. There is a lot. There's no really weakness to his game. He does everything at least good at a good level, I would say, like TreVeyon Henderson. Shipley, he can catch the ball. He's super competitive. Sounds like his work ethic is outstanding. He's a guy that came into Clemson and burst onto the scene and played right away as a true freshman, a former 5-star recruit, just like TreVeyon Henderson, both 5-star recruits. So, yeah, there's a lot of similarities between Will Shipley and TreVeyon Henderson. So I think that Will Shipley, even though he's not viewed as I think he's like consensus 4 to 6 range right now. I think that he'll be a guy that people will talk about as a good player. I guess to use an example, it would be kind of like George Karlaftis last in the 2022 NFL draft was never. No one really had him as the the number 2, 1, 2, or even sometimes 3 edge rusher, but still went late first round and is still developed into a good player. There's a lot of guys like that they're gonna they'll be. I can't think of any more examples off the top of my head, but they're not going to be the first player at their position, but going to be a really good player nonetheless. So we'll transition to talking some safeties now. Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Cooper DeJean from Iowa is. You watch him, and the movement skills really stand out. And he's a guy that is a really good tackler. It's fun to watch him. When a guy catches the ball, it's fun to see his burst and acceleration, to him just go and tackle wide receivers. Iowa plays a lot of zone, so you see him in zone coverage quite a bit. But he does excel. He does excel in zone coverage and does an excellent job playing zone. Can flip his hips. He's fluid in transition. This guy that's got really good ball skills. He was a really high-end level athlete coming out of high school. Cooper DeJean, viewed by some as a safety, viewed by corners and others. Iowa, they play him on the outside. I think I got to dive into some more tape on him. I've just kind of watched some highlights, just watched a game or two, but I think that he does have the ability to move in the slot, but the way he can move in zone, read the quarterback, burst, break on the ball. This is a guy that could play safety or corner, kind of like the next guy I'm going to get to. But yeah, Cooper DeJean, super fun watch, and he's a guy that's shooting up boards. I see a lot of. I like to look at the consensus ranking, but if you look at other people are high on. Other people are high on Cooper DeJean as well too, and he's getting a lot more buzz now as we get closer to the season. A lot more, I think at this time a lot more people are starting to dive into tape. So I think right now you're starting to get more of true rankings. So, and then the next guy, Javon Bullard from Georgia. So Bullard is a guy that you can tell the Georgia coaching staff thinks highly because. They play him they play him at the nickel position. I think they call it like the dog position at Georgia. So Bullard is asked to cover, to blitz. He's excellent he's good in zone and man coverage. He's not really as good he's not super agile. Like his agility is pretty solid. I don't think that's like the strength of Bullard's game, but he is fairly agile. So Javon Bullard, I think, is going to be kind of like with Will Shipley, I think, Bullard's probably not going to be talked about as the consensus, one or two, maybe even third safety, but I think he's got a skill set where he will transition well to the NFL nicely, and he will find a role probably as a nickel corner, maybe even a free or strong safety. I think he can do either of that, kind of like DeJean. I think he can play safety or corner at the next level, but yeah, Javon Bullard, he's been a strong suit of the Georgia defense, and he's a guy that's going to be one of their key playmakers this year, so it'll be fun to see how he plays this year. And, Bullard going to be in the mix for one of the top safety spots. How will the NFL view him as a safety or a corner? I think that is a big question. The next guy I wanted to get to, Caleb Bullock from USC. Caleb Bullock was a super fun watch. Caleb Bullock does a good job in playing the deep middle, playing the deep half. He's got size, length. I like his leaping ability. He can make plays on the ball, whether that's coming down with tipped interceptions or going up in traffic when there's him and his teammate going up and trying to make a play and swatting and breaking up passes. So Caleb Bullock, a guy he's the consensus number 2, 3 safety, but I think some people do have him number 1 or 2. I think I saw a couple of sites that have him as the second best safety in this class. So I think Bullock, when it's all said and done, could make a case for the number 1 safety in this class. He's a guy that just hasn't really played a ton of football like most of these guys. But you see he's a really good tackler. You see he's got really good long speed to chase down ball carriers. I think he does a good job of putting the foot in his ground, in driving and working out, in or out, and breaking and making plays on wide receivers. So Caleb Bullock, a really strong player, really nice player at safety for USC. Cameron Kitchens is another safety for Miami. Cameron Kitchens had an excellent year last year, 6 interceptions. Kitchens, he's a guy that really flies all around the field. I love watching him fly around and make hits. He can read plays really quickly. This is a guy who he's going to be one of the strong players on the Miami defense. Hopefully, will be part in helping Miami turn around their this program and get them back to winning ways under Mario Cristobal. But Kitchens a guy that is not getting a lot of buzz right now. But the way if he has shows more ability, or continues to show the ability that he has, making plays on the ball. He does. I don't think he is maybe as fluid an athlete as like Cooper DeJean or Caleb Bullock, but he does show the ability to drop deep into coverage and certainly can make plays on the ball. And his hands are really good. His leaping ability or jumping ability is fairly solid. But I think that this guy, if he shows that his ball skills are just so elite, I think the jumping ability, I don't think that'll be as big a concern by NFL evaluators. But 6 interceptions in 2022. You see a lot of ability to make open field tackles. Cameron Kitchens, another safety to keep on your radar. Chris Abrams-Drain shifting back to corner. Abrams-Drain he's a guy that's rising up the consensus board, a corner out of Missouri. They like to play him in the slot. What was interesting about Abrams-Drain is, you watch him, his movement skills don't jump off the tape, but he's just very fluid, and he just seems to kind of glide towards the ball. And you see his pursuit is pretty good. Like, you watch him, and some guys, you see him putting the foot in the ground, they can really just burst, accelerate. Abrams, you see that, but it's so fluid that he just it doesn't look like he's moving fast, but he just slowly closes in on the guy, and he can make open field tackles. He's got really good ball skills. He had 14 pass breakups this year. That was second in the SEC. So Abrams-Drain I need to watch some more tape on him, but what I've seen from him, I really like, and I think he's got a skill set that if he fully utilizes it this year, I think he'll shoot up boards, and I think he'll be a guy that will move up on the corner conversation. So another guy I want to talk about is Nate Wiggins from Clemson. So Nate Wiggins was a guy that one of the first few guys I've watched, and he's a guy that actually, when I've watched more, I've actually. Not that I've thought less of his game, but I think I needed to pump the brakes a little bit on Nate Wiggins. Now, Nate Wiggins is a guy where it kind of reminds me of A.J. Terrell, and I know I've talked about this a ton, that Clemson trusts Nate Wiggins got burnt at times last year because Clemson trusts him in man-to-man coverage. I think, to me, he is good in man-to-man coverage. Clemson plays a little bit more zone as in years past, but I think that Nate Wiggins, well, he is good in man coverage. I don't think it's like his movement skills, his burst, his agility, the back pedal. I don't know if they are. I would say they're all pretty good to good. I don't know if there is I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's not as many elite traits about Nate Wiggins' game as I had hoped. But Nate Wiggins, all around solid cornerback. I think he's going to be, I don't know. Next season, I guess I'll say that next season, maybe more so than any other corner. Denzel Burke, like for example, Denzel Burke, Kool-Aid McKinstry are that kind of the consensus top two guys. I know you got a few guys that will make an argument. Cooper DeJean, is he a corner safety? So DeJean, Denzel Burke, Kool-Aid, those are kind of the consensus three, top three guys. And I think they're probably going to stay. Burke and Kool-Aid, I don't think are going to move too often. I think Nate Wiggins, if there's one guy that, could move to the top three, I think it is Nate Wiggins. And, with a really good season and I guess he just needs to be more consistent in man-to-man coverage. It's one of those things where, just because a guy, even though Nate Wiggins has the skill set to be a good corner in the NFL, you just don't want to see too much tape of him getting burnt, because then, that really makes you question, does this guy just, does he lack instincts? Is it, his work ethic? Is he not getting enough reps in practicing making plays one-on-one? Because it's one of those things where he's in position to make a play. He just needs to make a play more often. So that, to me, that just is kind of a question of, well, it's first of all, you got to give him credit because he's, at least with the receiver in a tough position, almost an impossible, very tough position. But it's also one of those things where in practice, does he just not make enough plays on the ball, and it kind of translates to the game? So yeah, Nate Wiggins, fascinating guy. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school. Quinyon Mitchell, a guy from Toledo. So I just watched some of his tape briefly. This is a guy that moves pretty well, can really put his foot in the ground and drive. I think that Mitchell being from Toledo, that's going to hurt him a little bit. He's not going to be discussed as much unless he has a really excellent season. You look at guys coming out of smaller schools, like the receiver, Sky Moore from Western Michigan. You think with this guy, Quinyon Mitchell, this is a guy that, he is moving up consensus boards a little bit, but this is a guy that, it seems like the smaller school guys don't really rise till, late in the draft process, like late February, March, sometimes even early April. So Quinyon Mitchell with his, this is a guy that I think he'll move up during the season, but if he has just a phenomenal year, then I think, that might not propel him even a whole lot just because he's at Toledo, but maybe late in the draft process, that'll help him a lot. And then, we'll talk Denzel Burke. So, I talked Denzel Burke. Denzel Burke is the consensus number 2 corner by NFL mock draft database. Denzel Burke is a fun player to watch. He is, he's agile. He can make plays on the ball. He's a guy kind of like Nate Wiggins. I think he's got to make more plays on the ball. And I think this year, being tested man-to-man will be really telling for him. But with Denzel Burke, he was a guy that comes from a 5-star, he was a 5-star rated player coming out of high school, and he to say he's lived up to the billing as of yet, I would probably say no, but he's a guy where if, it all comes together this year and he just, he becomes a true shutdown guy, I think that you really say he lives up to the pedigree. But it's a guy that what was impressive about Denzel Burke is he started right away at Ohio State. That is, even though there has been some corners that have played early on at Ohio State, I think that is telling just how much the coaches trust him and how much they really liked what they saw of Denzel Burke. So, yeah, Denzel Burke, a fun player to watch, really good player, and a good all-around athlete. He's been a bright spot for the Ohio State defense the last couple years. And, we'll talk. So Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think now is the consensus 4th overall player. Kool-Aid just continues to rise up boards. It's interesting. He's been seen as the consensus number 1 corner, but now he's now seen as like the consensus number 4 overall player. And, when I first watched Kool-Aid, I wasn't as wowed as I thought I was going to be, but he's a guy that the more you watch of him, the more you really get an appreciation for this guy's skill set. He's so good at mirroring wide receivers, flipping his hips, making turns is effortless for this guy. He's got really good speed. He can break on the ball. He can break when the wide receiver breaks, whether that's in or out. Just Kool-Aid McKinstry, and you can tell he has been coached up very well by Nick Saban, the Alabama coaching staff. So, Kool-Aid McKinstry, not only is it a fun name to say, not only is he going to be one of the top names for next year's NFL draft, Kool-Aid is likely should stay as the number 1 corner. Now it'll be interesting, if Cooper DeJean is seen as a corner by most, next year or during next season or late in the draft process. Does Cooper DeJean make a push to challenge Kool-Aid for the number 1 corner spot? Does Denzel Burke make a push? I think, if you're honest, I think DeJean and Denzel Burke, based on from what I've seen, I don't know if I shouldn't speak for everyone that evaluate, but I think those would be 2 guys that would probably give Kool-Aid a push unless there's another guy that comes out of nowhere. I think Terrion Arnold, his teammate's interesting. I think he's got really good movement skills. Arnold, though, seems to drop down consensus. But, I think you got to believe that Kool-Aid is going to be locked in for the number 1 spot, though. But it will be interesting to see if more people start to kind of challenge that take and move other guys number 1. But Denzel Burke. If Denzel Burke just has his best, so he's had 2 really good years at Ohio State. If Denzel Burke has his best season this year and tops both his first 2 years, maybe that is the case that he has to be the number 1 guy over Kool-Aid. Shift gears now to edge rusher. So edge rusher, Jared Verse, consensus number 1 edge rusher, the edge rusher from Florida State. Jared Verse, he is a beast. He had a dominant performance against LSU week 1 last year. This is a guy that everyone wanted coming out of Albany. He was one of the top coveted transfers. And Verse is a beast. He is a nightmare to block. You see a lot of teams giving him special treatment, doing different things, using guards and tight ends to try to chip him. Jared Verse, he is explosive. He's good against the run. So, Jared Verse was a dominant season for Florida State. So, and Braylon. So I had Jared Verse, my number 1 edge rusher, and then Braylon Trice. I kind of went back and forth, Jared Verse, Braylon Trice. Braylon Trice I really like a lot. I'm a sucker for he's got excellent power, strong upper body, was very dominant at times. Teams really schemed to try to stop him, using guards, chipping him with tight ends, running backs. But Braylon Trice, Jared Verse, I think are the top 2 edge rushers. Both the Ohio State edge rushers are good. I'm just not. I like Jack Sawyer. I like his power. I don't think Jack Sawyer, his quickness off the ball, and his quickness and burst overall is pretty good. It's good, but it's not great. So, and Tui Moloau to me is more kind of a hustle guy with a little bit of upside. I don't think Tui Moloau. I think his game. I think he is a guy that will will probably be an eventual starter in the NFL. I don't think he'll ever be like a good starter, just because Tuimoloau just like his rush just kind of stalls out too often. He is a guy that you see a lot of what made him so good in high school. He is a guy that does have excellent pursuit, can close in on the quarterback. He is a really good athlete as far as he can jump up, deflect passes, pursue ball carriers. So there's a lot of that in Tuimoloau's game. He just lacks the speed to power is lacking, ability to the strength at the point of attack, the overall play strength is lacking a little bit. He is a pretty good wrap-up tackler. You saw him have an awesome, a big-time game against Penn State where he had like a sack, fumble. I think he had like a fumble recovery, interception. You saw it really a big game from Penn State, but one of the sacks he had in that game, he was like unblocked. So a lot of his production he hasn't been super productive either, but a lot of his production has come when he's unblocked or went up against a tight end. So I think Tuimoloau, he's sitting at the number 9 consensus. I think that is way too high. I think Tuimoloau certainly is a guy that's gonna fall, but yeah, it's not anything personally against Tuimoloau. I just do his skill set is just not. It's nowhere near Jared Verse, Braylon Trice, or even I'd say not even Jack Sawyer is above better too. But and then Dallas Turner seen as the consensus number 2 guy. Dallas Turner, the more I watch Dallas Turner, the more I like him. He is a guy who kind of like. Kind of a mix of Tuimoloau and Sawyer. He like Tuimoloau, he does have he's a really good athlete. He's got a strong, lean, muscular build. He is excellent pursuit. He's good against the run. His speed to power is pretty solid. He can get off of blocks pretty well, but yeah, Turner just is not like when you watch him, he's just not as dominant as you would hope. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Will Anderson. I think he actually has a little more upside as far as the NFL than Will Anderson, but reminds me of Will Anderson in the sense where it's kind of like they want, he was a 5-star, so they just assume he's going to be in 5-star. It's played well, so they just assume he's going to be the number 1, 2 edge rusher. Now Jared Verse the number 1, but you get my drift that he's going to be, some people think he's right behind Jared Verse, but I think that this year, if you see a little bit more, if he can improve his overall strength and that you see some more power, ability to get off blocks and more dominance from Dallas Turner, I think that he does have a case for the number 2 edge rusher. But to me, Jared Verse, and in my opinion, I know others don't see it this way, Braylon Trice and Jared Verse are ahead of Dallas Turner as of right now. To me, it's really tough right now. Braylon Trice and Jared Verse are my 1 and 2. My number 3, that's tough. That is a very tough for me to decide. If I had to pick, I might just go with Jack Sawyer because I like Jack Sawyer's ability, his power and ability to set the edge. Jack Sawyer he's not an elite athlete, but he's a good athlete. He's a guy that was a former basketball player in high school. Jack Sawyer was a number 3, 4 overall recruit, depending on what service you look at. So he was a big-time 5-star recruit coming out of high school. And Sawyer has played good football really for the last 2 seasons at Ohio State. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that with the edge rushers. Yeah, we'll talk. So some of the defensive tackles, Jerzon Newton from Illinois. Newton, his agility is very good for a man that big. I saw I watched the tape of him against Michigan. And he does a good job of just getting off of blocks. There's plays he can get off multiple blocks. Can hold his own. He's strong at the point of attack. He's got a swim move. So he's going to be up there, one of the top D tackles. Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State. So Michael Hall, if you flash back to 2022, Michael Hall really burst onto the scene, making impact against Notre Dame. And then after that, Michael Hall, his playing time kind of decreased for whatever reason. But this year, Michael Hall, likely with Ohio State losing some guys, Michael Hall is going to get a chance to get more or to play more, get more opportunities to make tackles for loss, be disruptive. Michael Hall, he's really he has all the ingredients to be a really good defensive tackle, not only next year for Ohio State, but in the NFL, just because he's got pass rushing ability. He's quick off the ball. He's agile. He can. You see the side-to-side movements is good. You see he can work through blocks. He can make tackles in the open field. He's got pursuit. Just moves very well for a man that big. So, yeah, Michael Hall, definitely going to be a guy to watch for Ohio State, and definitely a defensive tackle to track. He's moving up. He's the consensus number 3. I think he's moved from – I forget where he was. He was like 7th or 8th. Now he's like the consensus number 3 defensive tackle. So Michael Hall, interesting guy for sure, defensive tackle from Ohio State. Staying with defensive tackle, Mason Smith. Mason Smith, if you watch my LSU channel, it's the guy I've talked about a ton. This guy's going to be critical to the LSU football team. He's a presence inside. You saw when he was healthy in 2021, he certainly was a difference maker, and that's what they expect of him this year. Mason Smith, the consensus number 1 defensive tackle. He's a guy that it sounds like had the ACL last year in week 1. Sounds like he's done a really good job of rehabbing and getting his body right. Sounds like he's changed his diet. Looks fairly lean. If you looked at him in high school, he was not as lean. He looks a lot leaner now, especially in 2021. It sounds like he's looking good this year too. And Mason Smith set up for LSU is going to be a good team. And he's going to be a difference maker on a good team and in a program that has had a tradition of producing, NFL talent on the defensive line. So Mason Smith, his versatility not only to play inside, but they can move him out to like the 4 or 5 technique. So that versatility, along with the defensive tackle position, is a position that has become harder to develop in the NFL. A lot of the top defensive tackles, like I touched on in this channel, came from the 2019 NFL draft, where you had Christian Wilkins, Chris Jones. That was just a excellent Dexter Lawrence. That was just an excellent defensive tackle class. A lot of them coming from Clemson. So yeah, Mason Smith. That's the big question. Can Mason Smith become the next great defensive tackle that the NFL is dying for? Because these guys, you see the premium they have on them. You see Quentin Williams wants a lot of money. You see Dexter Williams got paid. Aaron Donald got paid a year or 2 ago. So yeah, the NFL is dying for top defensive tackles, and having a dominant defensive tackle is just such a difference maker, not only at the college level but in the NFL as well. Defensive tackles, it seems like they are getting smaller. So as they get smaller, it's harder and harder to show the two gap ability, the hold the point of attack, rush the passer. As they're getting small, as they want them to get smaller and more athletic, when you're smaller, it becomes it's a tougher and tougher ask to try to do all the different things required of a really good defensive tackle. So Mason Smith, can he be that guy? Is the question. But yeah, I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to the Brant Parshall Show. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.